So in the last video, we talked about the context, we talked about the thesis, we talked about how to group together the documents, we talked about including a topic sentence with them all. And remember, these videos, I know they're not the most exciting thing in the world, but watching them once and saying, all right, I have the information, probably isn't that. You should probably stop it, as you go through your own essay and ask yourself, am I doing these things? Do I understand all of the directions? And if not, of course, reach out and ask. So now that we've talked about the thesis and the context, how to group the documents and so forth, let's start to look at how to get the rest of the points in the body paragraphs. So evidence from the documents is worth technically 5 points. Evidence total is worth 5 points, but evidence from the documents is worth 3 right here that you can see on the screen. So you get 1 point just for describing or basically summarizing two of the documents. You're going to actually need to do it 4 times to earn the second 2 points as well. So basically, what we want to do is for at least 4 of the documents, you need to describe the overview. What is the document saying? A lot of people are very short on this and give very generic answers. I would recommend probably for most of you 2 sentences and making sure that you're adequately, describing what that document is saying. That should also, for the 4 documents, connect them to your argument. So using 4 documents to support the argument, you must, like the point above up here, describe at least 4 documents and connect them to your argument. So after describing each document, you should talk about the same document all at once. You shouldn't refer to document 2 at one point in your essay, go through other documents, and then come back to document 2. That doesn't make sense for a grouping wise. So when you're using these 4 documents, what you should do is describe them. Again, I say in about 2 sentences. You don't want to be too short and miss an easy point. You don't want to be too long and lose out on other parts of your essay, and connect them to your document and your argument as well. So after describing each of the 4 documents, again, you need to connect that to your argument. You're basically explaining how does the information from that document support the thesis and your argument from the introduction and your topic sentence from each of these paragraphs. I love using the word therefore. Explaining the contents of the document, new sentence, therefore, and then explaining how that content of the document that you just summarized is connected and helps your argument. And by doing that, not only do you get the point for describing it, but you also get the 2 additional points if you do it correctly for 4 documents. So remember, describing the document is not enough. I think I said this in my previous video, but one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people go describe the document and then say, this clearly shows how it supports, the argument, without ever actually making that connection. You need to make the connection, not have the grader or the reader do it for you. So describing the document and then therefore, because whatever, explain again in a sentence or 2 how the information from that document supports the different evidence or the different points that you make in your thesis. That is one of the most important parts of this DBQ, is relating everything back to the thesis. So in addition to using 4 documents, describing them, connecting them to your argument, and actually, even though it says 4, I would do it for 5 if you have time. The reason I would do it for 5, and if you're someone that's able to finish definitely in 45 minutes, the reason I would do it for 5, let's say that you don't describe a document correctly, nobody's perfect. Let's say you don't do a good enough job connecting the contents of the document to your argument. If you do it for 5 of them and you get 1 of them wrong, you're still using 4 of them correctly. So by doing all 5, you are allowing yourself a little bit of wiggle room to make a mistake with 1 of the 4. So I would recommend if you can do that and work in all 5, those are going to be the best essays, because even if you mess up the contents or you don't connect it to your argument very well, you can still not lose any points because 4 of them are still correct. In addition to the documents that are given you, you also can earn 2 points for specific outside information. So I like to use the term drive-bys, and I notice a lot of people doing these drive-bys in their essay. You cannot just say a piece of outside information. You need to say it, explain it, and then just like the documents, connect it to your argument. How does this evidence that you're providing relate to the argument that you're making? So the outside information can't be random. It has to be something that furthers your argument, whatever your argument or thesis may be. So again, two specific points for this, and I think these are pretty easy points to get because you all know so much about history at this point. So two specific pieces of evidence connected to the document, connected to the argument. They cannot be mentioned in your documents. So don't try to take information from one of the documents and use it as your outside information. The graders know the documents also well, so they're going to realize it's not outside information. Now, for the 30 Years' War one that we've been talking about, none of the documents ever mentioned the defenestration of Prague, where they threw the Catholics out the window. That would be a great way to show that it was, started as religion. That would add to the argument that you're making here. So make sure that your outside information is relevant and connected to your argument. So again, name it, explain it, and connect it to your argument. No drive-bys, and remember, this can be throughout any of the body paragraphs. Put it in where it makes sense. If it should support whatever your topic sentence is for that paragraph. So make sure it works in with whatever documents you're using. Important thing for this, any contextualization that you use in the introduction cannot be used again or count as outside information later on in your essay. There is no double dipping points on it. So if you use it once, you can't just state it later on as outside information or complex understanding and also get those points. So please keep that in mind. It has to be specific outside information in the body paragraphs that help you further your argument. So again, name it, what is the outside information you're using, explain it, and making sure, just like for the 4 documents, for your outside information, connect it to your argument. Without doing those 3 things twice for the outside information, you will not get the points for that. And I think, like I said, I think those are an easy 2 points to get that people miss out sometimes because they just gloss over it too quickly, they don't connect it to their argument, or it's just not really relevant to the argument at all what's being asked. Okay. The analysis and reasoning parts of it. So this is also worth 2 points for how the historical situation, audience, point of view, or purpose is relevant to understand the document and its evidence. You have to explain why is it relevant to your argument. So you have to do this twice. You need to have historical situation or audience or purpose or point of view for 2 of the documents, and you need to make sure that you fully connect it again to your argument, just like we do the outside information, just like we do with the contents of the document. We have to relate everything back to that thesis. So historical situation is basically just more context. What is going on just before or during when that document is being created, and how would it influence what is written or what is being said? It's not enough to only explain the historical situation. You need to explain how it would affect what's being written or said and how that connects to your argument one way or the other. The next thing you can do is audience. Think about it. A personal letter that's written from one ruler to another, or the Pope to a bishop, may be very different than a speech that same person makes because of who the intended audience is. It's not enough to just say, this audience is for blank. You have to really connect it to why it matters. How does who it's intended for influence the writing, and why does it matter? Is it, someone below the king trying to get in their favor? Is it someone trying to appeal to people? It's really important to again, connect it to the argument. Purpose. This isn't explaining what it says, but why it says that. Everything that has ever been written, ever in recorded history, has a purpose. It's up to you to figure out what the purpose is, and again, why that's relevant and connected to the argument that you're making. Is it trying to get people to do something? Why did the person write this in the way that they wrote it? So that's something to think about. And the last way to do this is the point of view, or some people call it the speaker point. Why does this person say it in the way they do? What is their background? Where are they educated? What is their job? What have they gone through? Who are they? What do they have to gain or lose from the events that are going on? So again, you need to do this for 2 documents. You do not need to do historical situation, audience, purpose, point of view for both documents, only one of them. So you need to make sure it can be any combination. If you want to use purpose twice, do it. If you want to do one point of view and one audience, great. Whatever one you feel like best will help you with that document, explain why it's relevant and connected to the argument is the one you want to do. So never in your essay should it say, in document 2, the purpose is this, the audience is this, and the historical situation is this. Instead of listing all of them for one, which you do not have to do, make sure that you, yes, explain what it is, but then connect it to the argument and explain why it's relevant to it. You need to do this twice to earn 2 points. If you only do it once, you only get 1 point, and obviously if you do it 0 times, you get 0 points for this. The same way that I told you you should use it 5 documents to further your argument and explain, in case you mess one up, if you can do the purpose for 3 documents instead of 2, if you mess up connecting one of the purposes to your argument or explaining why it's relevant, but you have 2 other ones that are adequate and can earn you the point, being wrong for one of them doesn't hurt you. So again, if you can do 3 there, it gives yourself a little wiggle room in case you're wrong. Remember, you only need to do this for 2 documents, only 1 sourcing per document. But like I said, if you want to give yourself a little wiggle room when you have time, doing it for a 3rd document will help you if you get one of the other documents wrong. Doing it for a 3rd document, if you get all 3 of them right, will not earn you any other points though. And the last point is complex understanding. This is the hardest point to get. The reason I'm having you use the formula that I talked about in the previous video is to set you up for this complex understanding. You can do that by making connections across time period or showing evidence with counterpoint. So that's why having a counterpoint in your thesis is so important, because you're setting it up so when you explain the counterpoint in your body paragraphs, you should hopefully get this complex understanding. If it was only one side, if this argument was only one-sided or you could only argument one way, it wouldn't be an argument. So be sure to never say in your essay, you know, it's 100% this and another the other side, because that's just not true. The question wouldn't be asked if only one side was arguable. Your thesis is the best way to set this up. By putting the counterpoint in your thesis and having a paragraph dedicated to it, it can earn you this complex understanding point, and you can use all of those documents in your argument because part of your argument is the counterpoint. One thing I'm going to say, be sure to never contradict yourself. Your thesis can't say it was primarily fought for religious and political reasons. Primarily, it has to be one or the other. So showing the counterpoint and providing evidence of that counterpoint without contradicting your argument is important. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please message